Welcome Cambridge Heroes for the Light Tree, October 2018. Francis Harding, of course. Text for Section A, an extract from The Light Tree by Francis Harding. The boat moved with the noisiest, relentless rhythm like someone chewing on a rotten tooth. The islands, just visible through the mist, also looked like teeth, Face decided. Not fine, clean Dover teeth, but jaded, broken teeth, jutting crookedly amid the whoosh of a choppy grey sea. A mailboat chugged its dogged way through the waves, greasing the sky with the smoke. Osprey, said Face through the chattering teeth and pointed. Her 6-year-old brother Howard twisted round, too slow to see the great bird, as its pale body and dog-fringed wings vanished into the mist. Faith winced as he shifted his weight on her lap. At least he had stopped demanding the nursemaid. Is that where we are going? Howard squinted at the ghostly islands ahead. Yes. Rain thudded against the thin wooden roof above their heads. The cold wind blew in from the deck, stinging Faith's face. In spite of the noise around her, Faith was sure that she could hear faint sounds coming from the crate on which she sat. Rasps of movement breathed the slither of scale on a scale. It pained Faith to think of her father's little Chinese snake inside, weak with cold, coiling and uncoiling itself in panic with every tilt of the deck. Behind her, raised voices competed with the keening of the gulls and the thud of the boat's great paddles. Now that the rain was setting in, everybody on board was squabbling over the small sheltered area towards the stern. There was room for the passengers, but not for all the trunks. Faith's mother's Myrtle was doing her best to claim a large share of her family's luggage, with considerable success. Sneaking a quick glance over her shoulder, Faith saw Myrtle waving her arms like a conductor while two deckhands moved the soldierly trunks and crates into place. Today Myrtle was waxing with tiredness and shrouded to the chin with shawl. But as usual, she talked through and over everybody else, warm, bland, and unabashed, with a pretty woman's faith in other helpless chivalry. Thank you. There, right there. Well, I'm heartily sorry to hear that, but it cannot be helped. On its side, if you don't mind. Well, your case looks very durable to me. I'm afraid my husband's papers and project will not endure the weather, so the Reverend Erasmus Tonnerly, the renowned naturalist. How very kind. I'm so glad that you don't mind. Beyond her round face, Uncle Miles was napping in his seat, blithely and easily as a puppy on a rug. Face's gaze slipped past him, to the tall, silent figure beyond. Face's father in his black priestly coat, his broad-brimmed hat overshadowing his high brow and hooked nose. He always filled Face with awe. Even now he stared out towards the grey horizon with his unyielding stare, distancing himself from the chilly downpour, the reek of pilch and coal smoke and the ignominious arguing and jostling. Most weeks she saw more of him in the pulpit than she did in the house, so it was peculiar to look across and see him sitting there. Today she felt a prickle of faint sympathy. He was out of his element, a lion in a rain-lashed sideshow. On Myrtle's order, Faith was sitting on the family's largest crate, to stop anybody dragging it out again. Usually she managed to fade into background, since nobody had attention to spare for a 14-year-old girl with wooden feature and a mud-brown plait. Now she winced under resentful glares, steered by all the embarrassment that Myrtle never felt. Myrtle's petite figure was positioned to impede anybody else trying to insert their own luggage under cover. A tall, broad man with a knuckly nose seemed about to push past her with his trunk, but she cut him short by turning to smile. Myrtle blinked twice, and her big blue eyes widened, taking on an earnest shine, as if she had only just noticed the person before her with clarity. Despite her pink-nipped nose and weary pallor, her smile still managed to be sweet and confiding. "Thank you for being so understanding," she said. There was the tiniest tired break in her voice. It was one of Myrtle's tricks for handling men. A little coquetry she summoned as easily and reflexively as opening her fan. Every time it worked. Faith's stomach twisted. It worked now. The gentleman flushed, gave a curt bow, and withdrew. But Faith could see he was still carrying his resentment with him. In fact, Faith suspected that her family had antagonized nearly everybody on the boat. Now let's go for the questions. Read the text in the insert and then answer questions from 1 to 14. What is the main theme of this extract? Of course, they are going on a journey. We don't know more. So it's migration, moving home, a boat trip, a journey, going on a journey. Which one word in the first paragraph suggests that the boat passengers may feel seasick, nauseous? Of course. The mailboat chugged its dogged way. What does this phrase suggest about how the mailboat moves? Of course, the boat moves slowly, steadily, dogged, steadily, persistently, tirelessly, determinedly. Her 6-year-old brother give two examples from the text that show that Howard is young. Now, of course, he was sitting on her lap. This is a very clear evidence. And of course, he has a nursemaid. He's sitting on her lap and recently needed only stopped asking for the nursemaid. Just mentioning the nursemaid, he didn't need the nursemaid, is enough to prove that he's still very young. What does the text tell you about Faith and the snake? Of course, Faith is aware that the weather will affect it, and Faith worries that the ship's movement will distress it. Both almost have the same meaning. Okay, it will affect the snake and it will cause her pain, of course. The writer mentioned a type of bird, gulls, on line 17. What other bird is mentioned in the text? Osprey. Osprey. This is what she calls the bird, of course. Behind her, raised voices competed with the keening of the gulls and the fud, fud, fud of the boat's great paddles. What language feature is phrase fud, fud, fud an example of? Very easy. Of course, it doesn't mean anything. It has the same meaning. Fud, like blink, like zap, like boom. What does it mean? This is, of course, not a personification or not having a thing that is talking or moving. Metaphor is no comparison. It's an onomatopoeia. What's an onomatopoeia? It's the use of words that has the same meaning as the sound that they produce. Of course, it's not a rhyme. There is no rhyming different words, of course. Read lines 17-21. Which one word indicates disagreement on the mail boat? Squabbling. No other words. Explain in own words why Myrtle is concerned about her husband's papers and projects. The weather is very bad. Of course, it will damage her husband's paper. They would be wet of the bad weather. She thinks they are important. The work of her husband is he's an important man, of course, renowned. What does the writer suggest about Uncle Miles by comparing him to a puppy on a rug? He's young, of course not. He's carefree. This is possible. He's noisy, of course not. He's sleeping. He's affectionate. No, of course, no emotion is produced. So he's carefree. Number 11. Look at the table below about Faith's father, Reverend Sunderley. Complete the gaps. Here we have quotes from the text explanation and then the explanation that explain this quote. It doesn't talk much. He's silent. His unyielding stare. He looks directly at things. He's fully focused and won't be distracted. He's inflexible. He's not flexible. He is inflexible. He chooses not to get involved with what's happening. He's distancing himself, distancing away. Distancing means away from everybody else. He was out of his element, not of course in a good mood. He's not comfortable in this situation. He's not in his comfort zone. He's not used to sea. Wooden features and mud pamphlet. Explain in your own words what this tells you about Faith's opinion of her appearance. She's not satisfied about her appearance. She thinks she's plain, ordinary, not like her mother, of course, Myrtle. She doesn't like her appearance. She doesn't think she looks good. Faith and her mother, Myrtle, are very different in character. Explain in your own words 4 ways in which their characters differ. Of course, we have many different features, not only in physical shape, but also in character. So we are characterizing both of them. The purpose of the question is to characterize both Myrtle's character and Faith's character. She likes to be noticed, attention seeker, attention grabber. Now, Faith is, of course, is shy, timid. She thinks that she's invisible, self-conscious. She isn't embarrassed at all. She's bold. She's embarrassed easily. Doesn't notice resentment because she's bold, of course, and daring. Now, on the other hand, Faith is sensitive to other notices and notices resentment. She's confident, sure of herself, certain, extrovert. Now, on the other hand, this girl is introvert, a person who doesn't show much feeling. But extrovert shows a lot of feeling. Bold, doesn't care about other people's feelings sometimes. She's shy and timid. This is Faith, of course. Uses her looks, flirts, manipulates. She uses her looks because she's beautiful. She flirts. She seduces other men, of course, trying to show her beauty. She manipulates. She manipulates these men to do what she wants. On the other hand, Faith is naive. This is a very good word to describe being simple-minded. Not simple-minded. She is not that manipulative. She's not that trickster person. She's simple, honest, clear. Here, Myrtle is more selfish. She cares only about her interests. On the other hand, Faith is thinking of the animal, thinks of others, caring, obedient. She follows her instructions. She cares about the animal inside the crate. Choose two examples from the text where the writer uses islands to create atmosphere. For each example, describe the effect this has on the reader. Of course, we have the description of the island. The mist creates atmosphere of mystery, melancholy, looks like broken teeth. Okay, it makes the island seem unpleasant, hostile, inhospitable, depressing, grim, cold, forbidding, dangerous, foreboding. All these, of course, create a sense of atmosphere that or foreshadowing that horrible events that are going to take place, of course. It's ghostly. It makes them seem unreal, scary, haunted, has some secrets. So the island is promising horror and adventures and mystery. Now we move to the writing. Write a letter to a friend describing a difficult journey you had to make. You could consider where you were going and why, whether you were alone or with people, what happened during the journey, why it was difficult. Now you make a plot. Whether we are writing a letter or we are writing a fiction or a story, you should make a plot, of course, and write events. You should start with exposition, set scenes, prepare mood, atmosphere, describe the struggle or the conflict that's going. And so whether external conflict or internal conflict. External conflict could be with other people, as Myrtle had with the passengers about the spot sheltered, or internal conflict that was going through Faith herself. She was suffering from uh, being shy and timid, and the jealousy maybe of her mother who was bold and daring. This is a conflict that's going inside her, of course. Don't forget to put a twist following actions. Then finally, the resolution of your story. Good luck with your writing.